Howdy there folks, Quinn of Snazzy Labs. To the right of me, I have a $4,000 Mac Pro. Despite it being almost 2.5 years old, it is still the most current model that Apple sells. If you go to an Apple store, pay $4,000 for a Mac Pro, that's what you're gonna get. Behind me, I have a $2,200 custom PC that I just finished building this week. And we're gonna put them to the test. Which one is faster? And does the $4,000 Mac Pro seem even more antiquated than it did when it was released over 2.5 years ago? Let's find out. So this is the second of 4 videos about our 2016 Studio Office redesign. This week we got in new sound panels, which smell like fish. They smell absolutely horrible. But these are very expensive, very fancy little sound panels, which should help the isolation of sound in our studio significantly. And so gone is the crappy audio quality that you hear now. This is the last week you will have to endure it. And then secondly, I also built this IKEA desk behind me. It's not really an IKEA desk. All of the parts are available from IKEA, but it's a DIY, kind of a hack desk. It's 97 inches long, 25 inches wide, and costs less than $250 to build. If you are interested in how I built this desk, you can let me know by leaving a like on this video and commenting below, and I'll be sure to make a video in the near future. But let's stop talking about that. Let's get to the PC. That's what you came here for. As many of you suspected, I started building this PC last week. I had problems getting the system to post. It was randomly rebooting. Many people said, it's the PSU. I thought it might be. And I had purchased a Corsair AX760i refurbished from Newegg because I've always had good success with buying refurbished products. However, if you go to that comment section and read the comments, you would have thought that I had murdered a whole family because people were like, that's blasphemy. Why would you ever buy a refurbished power supply? You're crazy. And so I decided to buy an EVGA 750 watt power supply that was new. And it's been nothing but just roses, and it's been excellent. So I do regret, and I apologize for daring to purchase something refurbished. It was the power supply. That was the only thing that needed fixing, and the machine is working flawlessly. So let's benchmark these two machines. The one on the right has a quad-core Xeon processor clocked at 3.3 gigahertz. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and that's pretty much it. Oh, it has two Fire Pro D500 graphics cards. Now on the left, on my PC, we have a 5820K processor from Intel. Now that is a 6-core hexa-core processor clocked at 3.3 gigahertz, but I have overclocked it to about 3.8, and that's about as high as I can seem to go without getting some weird voltage problems and overheating issues. But I know I can go higher. 4.0, 4.2, I know I can hit that, so I'm going to keep playing around with it. But right now, for the sake of this video, it's at 3.8 gigahertz. Overclocked 500 megahertz from the stock base 3.3 clock speed. Got it? Okay, good. I've got 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR4 RAM, and I have a GTX 980 Ti graphics card from NVIDIA. So let's benchmark these two machines. By the spec sheet, this machine on the left, despite being half the price of the Mac Pro, should be faster because it's new hardware. This machine on the right was already kind of not super great when it came out, and now it's 3 years old, and it's still the most modern Apple Mac Pro you can buy, which is just, Apple is a frustrating company. But yeah, so that's the situation. Theoretically, the one on the left should be faster. It shouldn't be a whole lot faster, but it should be faster. So let's stop talking and get ready to go to the benchmarks. Okay, so the first test we're going to run is Cinebench. That is going to test how fast the CPUs are on each computer. Now, single core benchmarks can be performed, but I really don't think that it's necessary because where computers really start to hurt and slow down and struggle is in multi-core processes, which is video editing, not even gaming. Gaming usually stays in kind of single core processing because it relies on the GPU more. It does use other cores, but really where stuff gets really freaking hard on that CPU is video editing. So we are going to try to run Cinebench, which uses the CPU to kind of construct a 3D model. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so that test would imply that the Windows computer is significantly faster than the Mac at multi-core CPU processes. But what about stuff that uses OpenGL, which is basically using the graphics card more than the CPU? Let's give it a shot. My Mac Pro did not appreciate this test. GPU load was at 100%, the computer was spitting out hot air, and the fan was at full speed. However, despite that, it finished with 75 frames per second, which I thought to be a pretty respectable score, and I was proud of my Mac little Pro. At least that was until I ran the benchmark on the PC, which completely and utterly destroyed it, clocking in at double the frame rate of 140 frames per second. Now, what I found unusual was, unlike the Mac Pro, which was sweating bullets to get through the test, the GPU fans were still spinning really low, so I started to wonder if the benchmark even took full advantage of the GPU's power. And to my suspicion, it did not. GPU load during the whole entire test never went over, I think, 30-40%. It was very, very, very low. And so I decided to go with a trickier benchmark, which was Unigine Valley. Now, this is a much more difficult 3D benchmark, and as you can see, the Mac Pro is just hating life, trying to struggle and get through it. And boy, does it barely make it, with the whole machine about ready to melt. It finished the benchmark with an average frame rate of 14.8, a minimum frame rate of a mere 8 frames per second, and a maximum of just 24.5 with a score of 618. Not too impressive. Now, it was running ultra quality, very maximum settings at 1440p. However, the PC just breezed through this test. Granted, it wasn't in the hundreds of frames per second like the previous test, but it was still averaging a very respectable 45 to 55 frames per second. And from what I've Googled online, that seems to be a pretty good frame rate, as this is a very intensive GPU test. The computer finished with 49 frames per second as an average and a score of 2087. Do you remember the Mac Pro score? It was 618, so more than 3 times faster than the Mac Pro. Wow, that's impressive. Now, the last test I'm not really going to show you on screen, but I do want to mention, was I did an export in Premiere Pro. It was a real-life test. I exported the same video that I had already made on the Mac Pro and on the PC. The PC finished it in just 18 minutes, and the Mac Pro took over 54 minutes. So I'm not sure which frustrates me more. The fact that a $2,200 computer, which I built in a couple of hours, runs laps, double the performance. No, it was triple the performance, more than triple the performance of a Mac that costs 2 times as much money. Or the fact, actually this frustrates me much more, that the flagship computer, the Mac Pro, used for professionals, the best computer you can buy from Apple, the professional model, it's not for consumers, it's not for grandmas, it is for pros, for cinematographers, for videographers, for photographers. If you need the best of the best computer, you need to buy the Mac Pro. The fact that the Mac Pro, which is the best computer that Apple sells, is a late 2013 model. We're in 2016, people. This computer is 2.5 years old. It has not been updated by Apple in 2.5 years. And when it was released back in late 2013, the hardware it was running was already almost a year old. So Apple's selling nearly 4-year-old hardware for $4,000 to $10,000 and marketing it as a pro product. And a pro product, it is no longer. It really wasn't even when it came out, but it is certainly not a pro product anymore. And so, Apple, what's your deal? Why have you waited 4 years to update it? Come on, update the Mac Pro already. Actually, don't update it yet because I need to sell this. Update this in like 6 months once I've sold it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you thought it was stupid and you didn't like it, I guess I can't please everybody, you can give it a dislike, and please let me know in the comments what I could do to improve. And as always, stay snazzy. See you later, folks.